The United States Army is immersed in culture and traditions dating back hundreds of years. One of these traditions was used as a timekeeper and an alarm clock until it was replaced by the pocket watch and synchronized time. But the Army still uses it every day to signal the start of the duty day. The Army's dedication to preserving the past is seen through museums, artifacts, and traditions. While one of the Army's oldest traditions is a song soldiers hear every morning called the Reveille.
The bugle calls that we hear at Fort Benning haven't changed in 200 years. They do it in the morning to signify the beginning of the duty day and the rising of the colors. When you hear Reveille, means you're close, but get lined up and everything, because they're going to call the roll. The first sergeant's going to call your name and you better be there to answer it.
The Reveille is played electronically now, but when it was first used, it was played on a bugle by a soldier called the Bugler. He never carried a weapon, but his job was just as important.
The band was a very important morale builder, and you could also hear a sound a lot further than you could see in the woods or in the mountains. And so what happens is the field music, or the musicians, would be considered soldiers, but they would not carry weapons.
One such bugler managed to get himself over an impenetrable wall in Peking, China, during the Boxer Rebellion. Calvin P. Titus scaled the wall and opened the door from the inside, allowing for capture of the city. He later received the Medal of Honor for his heroic actions.
A United States infantry company of 100 soldiers would include a bugler, because as you took 100 soldiers and spread them out in a skirmish line out in the front to fight, dismounted and dispersed in front of the battlefield, the bugle was how you would give commands.
Bugles are easily heard over the roar of battle. Unlike the drum or the fife, they were used as signals and as timekeepers.
Bugle calls were how the entire schedule was run in the military until World War I. Very few people had watches, and there was no way of synchronizing time, and only the officers or the nobles could read.
The bugle eventually became obsolete. The Reveille was no longer required because of synchronized time and the appearance of pocket watches.
In World War I, a couple of things occurred. You had field telephones had wired all the trenches back and forth along the trenches and back through the command channels. Leaders wearing watches, and with the field telephone, the bugle, at least in the field, began to go out of fashion.
And even though the bugle is no longer used on the battlefield, it's still used during certain ceremonies in the Army. But the Reveille is still played every morning on every Army installation.
It's always important to understand where we're from and where our profession is based. And so the traditions, many of which we have, are very unique to the military. Whether it become marching, wearing a uniform, fighting for our freedoms and defending our country, or understanding when I hear that bugle, that means my duty day has begun, and after it's over, I go back to my family.
But the song was still played every morning, carrying on the tradition into the 21st century, where we hear it every morning, ringing through the installation as a reminder to remember our past.